Dr. Marie Rosenkranz is a cultural sociologist working at the intersection of cultural and sociological theory. She teaches since 2020 about art activist practices and the politicization of art at the Humboldt University in Berlin, at the Zürcher Hochschule der Künste, at the University of Helsinki and the Art Academy Düsseldorf. She has written and edited extensive or tactics within the arts, and she is the spokesperson for the sociology of the arts cluster at the German Sociological Association. So I would say here we have someone who has thought a lot about the political roles and actions of art, and is now going to share a little bit about what parasite art is within this field of political art and how it differentiates itself within it.
Thank you very much. So I don't know. Now it should work? Yeah, nice. Thank you very much, Marina, for this kind introduction and also for the invitation and all the great organization behind this event. I should probably say that I'm only joining the conversation today, so I'm a bit, I'm hopeful that I'm adding something new, but it's also possible someone already said really similar things during the week. However, when I thought about what could I contribute today, I thought it could be nice to think about all the things parasite art is avoiding to be. So that's why I called it a negative theory of parasite art. It's also a quite spontaneous negative theory of parasite art that looks at all the different ways in which parasite art tries to be different than other forms of activist art. And I felt like this is interesting in the sense that maybe not all art forms are so full of moments of trying to be different or trying to take a distance from certain conflicts, dilemmata, or unwanted effects of critique. So that's where my analysis will be going, that parasite art is a lot about avoiding certain conflicts or finding new answers to these conflicts and thereby avoiding certain unwanted effects. So if I call this a negative theory, that doesn't mean the parasite judges other art forms or finds them ineffective, but finds different ways. Before I start with the different avoidance strategies of the parasite, I want to quickly tell you where I'm looking from. And besides being a sociologist of the arts, I should probably say this is the project that informs my perspective the most. So I'd be very interested to hear from you later if it also applies to your projects that you are going to do or that you're already doing. Thanks. A nice soundtrack. Is there anyone in the room who hasn't heard of this project yet? So maybe I do a really quick introduction. So this is a project by Jakob Margetwirth and Alexander Zakharov, which happened from 2019 to 20 in Berlin. So I'm going to speak mainly about Berlin projects, actually. And this project was about the gentrification and rent crisis in Berlin. And they put this really nice little penthouse on rooftops of different residential buildings in Berlin, and thereby sparked a really big media debate about the right to the city, basically. So who's using the rooftop spaces of housing? And I really like this idea of going upwards. So one narrative behind it was that gentrification often makes people go to the outskirts of the city, and this movement here would be to go up instead. So it's a quite imaginative project, and I think it went to really interesting spots in the city. I don't know if you are aware of the Red Rathaus. Sorry, my brain is really hot. Sorry? Town Hall, thank you. Yeah, it's very hard to see, but on the left there's the Red Town Hall. So it's close to its opponent, I would say, but it's also turning away from it. So I just mentioned this to tell you a bit about my perspective and where I'm thinking from now. So I'm going to present you 5 strategies that I call 5 avoidance strategies of the parasite. And the first one which has already been discussed a little bit, would be to avoid taking sides. What do I mean by that? This is mainly about taking a moral stance. This was already discussed a bit and criticized a bit, but it's also referring to other art activist forms that need to find a really clear message. So here I put Die Vielen on there, which is a really active theater network against right-wing politics in Germany. And of course, you can see that one of the main strategies needs to be clearly understood and to have a clear message. So the Parasite does not do that. It rather shows the positions of others and shows the rules of the system it operates in. The second thing the Parasite tries to avoid is confrontation. What did I mean here with confrontation? Confrontation needs a clear opponent. And as you know, I mean, you all are experts for Parasite art in a way, the opponent is not really so distinct from the Parasite in this case. So I put here two different art activist actions that really work with clear confrontation. I think projections are maybe a good example because they are often projected on the opponent. So on top you see an action led by donkeys or Center for Political Beauty, it's actually not clear, who both owned this image projecting Elon Musk on the Tesla factory in Grünheide. Actions, for example. What does the Parasite do instead? It conflates this distinction between the activist subject, opponent, and the public. You could also think about this as the activist as a protagonist, the opponent as the antagonist, and the public as the spectator, if you want to do it from a theater perspective. Everything is a bit more complicated and blurred, and you can also switch roles in Parasite art, right? I put this picture up again because I really like how the opponent is in the back. I think visibility is maybe the most tricky one. Of course, the Parasite needs to avoid, to a certain degree, being seen because then it will be evicted. But I think it only avoids visibility towards the host, right? So it has to avoid high visibility, but it has to, or I like the word hope here, that it hopes to be seen by others. So maybe that would be something to discuss later. Who are the others and how does the Parasite reach them if it's not direct address? The fourth one is a bit linked to the first one, actually. Of course, the Parasite avoids having a clear call to action, but I thought it would be worth mentioning that lots of artists are also doing that nowadays. One example is the anti-Brexit campaign by Wolfgang Tillmans, where he really tried to mobilize in the sense that he asked people to vote and to participate in the referendum. So this level of explicitness is, of course, being avoided in Parasite art. Or why do I say of course? Maybe you will say something else, actually. And then the fourth one, oh no, that's still the same one. Even though it doesn't call to action directly, I do think there is a way of agitating and unsettling and mobilizing in it, but it's less explicit. So what is being mobilized is a sense of possibility and of imagining new ways of critique. And the last one, I think, is quite important. Maybe this one is most informed by me as a spectator of Parasite art as well, because for me personally, it has a certain humor often. And I've used some examples of Jakob Marget's practice in my talks, and that was often a moment when someone laughed after quite calm listening. This was the moment when someone laughed. And I think that's because many of the conflicts or crises activist artists intervene into are very serious. So it can bring a certain degree of lightness or humor to respond to these crises by parasite art, because it's more playful, or it often plays a trick on the system it intervenes into. This is another example that uses this kind of trick. I think maybe for the non-German spectators, it's worth mentioning it. It's the action by Center for Political Beauty, where they built the Holocaust memorial, or a fake Holocaust memorial, into a right-wing politician's garden. So if I sum this up, when I thought about what to contribute, I felt like these 5 avoidance strategies could maybe paint a certain picture of what the parasite is trying to do differently. But I should probably discuss the term avoidance a little bit more, because it could also, of course, be understood as a political attitude. And of course, parasites are quite political, as we've already seen in the discussions. There's a liberatory approach for some of you. So it's maybe more accurate to speak of avoiding than avoidance. So the parasites are avoiding certain strategies. Why? Because some strategies come with certain problems and dilemmata. So parasites try to exit from dilemmata such as the neutralization of critique, or also the aestheticization of social relations, as has been thought about by Nicolas Bourriot. So actually, parasites try to politicize these relations much more. And the final point, and that's also related to the laughing, I think that for many audiences, this idea of parasite art brings some relief of the idea that art has to have a great activist gesture, but that it can also be much more niche and much smaller, and have more of a subversive strategy than a revolutionary one. And maybe just to close, I put the new spirit of capitalism here, because I also thought about what context are we discussing this in. And I've read a lot of, or I understand the Parasite School as very much addressing the problem of capitalism as well. And this book by Luc Boltanski and Eve Chiapello argues that artists have played a quite important role in making, or an unwanted role actually, in making capitalism so strong and so resilient today. So I felt like this idea is maybe worth mentioning, and I also feel like parasite art is actually taking this very much into account. So it's avoiding the kind of anti-capitalist artist critique that would strengthen capitalism. But we would have to discuss, of course, where there's a tipping point maybe to making it stronger, more flexible, more future-oriented, and so on. That's it.